Hey everyone, welcome to Chasing Art. Hey, it's been a while since I've been on here. I figured why not give live streaming another shot. So, my plan for tonight, just because YouTube's usually boring on weekends, so I figured, you know what, I'm just going to live stream while I'm drawing. So, what I'm working on tonight is the Grand Hotel on Michigan's Mackinac Island. I know, shocker, right? Yeah, I'm still working on Mackinac Island drawings. It's a little bit involved, so I'm going to kind of break it down. I'll show you the reference here. Let's see. There's the reference picture. I took this last summer. I thought it was kind of a cool picture, so why not try and give it a shot? This is where I'm at this point, and I'm just gonna live stream continuing with this for a little bit. I don't know how long I'm gonna do it for, but we'll see. We'll play it out and see where it goes. I figured I would work on this section of it right here, and yeah, we'll just go with it and we'll hop on in. I am using a 4H right now. I'm just trying to fill in, and then as I progress through it, I'll end up coming in with more varying hardnesses of lead, and yeah, just start darkening things up as I go. And because this is a shingled roof, I'm doing most of my lines vertically here just to kind of give the indication of it being shingled, the texture. Reference looks like it's almost completely just blacked out, doesn't it? But we'll try and give it a little bit of shape too. I'm going to have to come back in with an eraser and hit that. I'm going to start working on those windows. We have a little bit of shading here, and shading's the thing that I love the most when I'm drawing. It's when it really starts all coming together when you start shading. It's my favorite part of it. Looks like a lot of the shading comes all the way down. See, on this end, it's all the way down. All the way down, but starting to lift up. Starting to see some of that light from the windows on the other side. We'll start working on these along here. Looks like those are all pretty much grayed out, so they're going to be just kind of a fill in. I might do a little bit of something like I've already done over here. Yeah, maybe something like that. It looks like this back little jut out on this. It looks like brick, but it's so far away. I'm not even going to bother trying to get the detail in on that. I'm just going to shade this out, I think. So with a little bit of graphite on there, I'm going to come in with a blending stump, I think, and just kind of try and blend that in. All right, right now I'm just initially blocking everything in. That's kind of the way I consider how I'm doing this. And I don't want to lose that defined edge right there. So I'm going to come back over that again too. All the way. I know through here There's a shadow that comes across there. And this is darker than this up here. We're gonna work towards that. Alright, now we're gonna darken that shadow area back up a little bit. Do I prefer to work in graphite? You know, I kind of bounce around on that a little bit. I really like using graphite. It's not the easiest to get on video because it is very reflective. So it's not the easiest to get on video. But I do really like working with graphite. I also do a lot of watercolor, acrylics, that kind of thing. And I really like working with them too. But I did find that having a good understanding of the basics as far as shading and everything when it comes to graphite really helps when it comes to anything with color. So right now I've been concentrating mainly on graphite, and yeah, I do really like watercolor and acrylics. Probably watercolor is my next favorite, and from there I do a few different things. And I'm going to try to do this with shading. The reference, it looks like it's kind of like that. And then this edge over here is just slightly darker. So you know what, I'm not even going to put any graphite down. I'm going to try using my blending stump and just work a little bit of this over. I get just a little bit more graphite down in here so I can blend this out and try and keep this all matching. I'm alright with a little bit of variation in the final product because I think it lends a little bit to the aged look. And this hotel does have an aged look when you see it in person. Even in the reference, you can tell it's an older building. There we go. We can come back and redefine these windows. I'm not going around them all the way right now just because I think this gives a little bit more depth, a little bit more shape to the way they look. Sometimes I draw so small that I end up holding my breath and forgetting to talk. So if I do that, yeah, just like that. So if I do that, don't take no offense to it. I'm trying to get these in because this is actually very small, as you can probably tell. I mean, you're literally watching it as I'm doing it, so. Looks like that one got a little bit dark. I'll come back in with my kneaded eraser here in a minute and dab some of that graphite out of there. Here we go. Just take a little dab out of it. There, now it's all better. Alright, so I'm going to let that sit as it is right there for now. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to come back and hit this a little bit more. I jump around quite a bit. I tend to. It's just kind of how I work at things. In the end, everything usually comes together pretty good. Even just, trying to run straight off of my reference. A lot of times I'll still bounce around and try to get a feel for things. Especially, I'm in the very early stages of this right now. There's a long ways to go. So we're going to start with the roof here. You can kind of see it in the reference. there's a very dark part and there's a semi-lighter part. So that's what I'm going to start working on here. And again, I'm going across because it is a shingled roof. And it's actually darker than this area. So actually, I hate to go dark right off the bat. I like to work up to my darkest darks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick with the 4H, but I'm going to just press a little bit harder just to get a little bit more graphite down. There's a like I say, this back section is a little bit darker than the front section. So I'm trying to find where a good value is. So you can still see the definition here. I might have to lighten this section up just a little bit. Just tap it a little bit with my kneaded eraser. Pull just a little bit of graphite off there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this over to the edge of the roof line. That is right here. If you can't see it on camera, it's a very light line, but it's right along there that I'm going to pull this over to. And hopefully that will give the, yeah, that's going to work. That's giving the illusion that there's a bit of that it's getting a little bit more light than the rest of the roof. There we go. That's not looking bad. Go back in and tap this just a little bit to lighten it up. Right along there. There, that's not looking bad. When doing darks, is it better to do that in layers than just going super dark right away? I feel it is. It's a good question. I feel it is because I like to sneak up on my darker darks. Like I said earlier, I like to block everything in and get an idea. And then as I'm going back and forth between my reference and my drawing, I'll start darkening certain areas up and it'll start really giving it a lot more shape. And that's kind of the way that I do it. Some people may come right in with their darkest darks right away, but I don't tend to work that way. Yeah, the paintbrush works great for removing crumbles. I like to call it eraser dandruff. All right, coming back to our reference again. It looks like the next two partition walls, being this one and this one, looks like they're pretty close to the same value. The one on the left being maybe just a touch lighter. It's not a lot. It's very minimal. Yeah, and then I made the left one darker than what it should have been. It's okay. There we go. I'm feeling that. So it looks like all of these have a gradient from one edge and then just kind of to white. So let's work on that. We're going to kind of do this number here. We're going to put down just a bit of graphite. I'll put down a bit of graphite, and then I'm going to come back in with my blending stump again. And yes, I honestly do use a blending stump as much as you're seeing. We'll give that a gradient out into white, and then we'll come over and hit this one. And we're just going to do the same thing across all of these. And this one on the end is the darkest of them. So I'm going to go a little bit darker, obviously, on it than what I did with the rest of them. And it's pretty solid all the way across, so I'm just going to add an even layer of this 4H graphite. And then we're going to blend this. Yes, I'm just blocking these in right now, but as I'm going through, I try to get at least a sense of shape of how everything's going to be in the final cut. The spot's probably going to go a bit darker, but at least I can see it when I come back over it. I'll know that, okay, that part needs to be a little bit darker. It may stay very similar to what it is. It's hard to tell at this point because it's very early and there's a long ways to go on this picture. As you can tell, I am not fast about this, so. But you know what? It's not a race, and I'm good with that. To me, this is very relaxing. A little bit. I can get worked up a little bit at times, but to me, this is just relaxing. I love doing it, and most of the time, everything turns out pretty decent. So sometimes the details, you can get lost in the details. While I love details, sometimes you just have to give it more of a, you kind of got to go more off a feel. Like, when is too many details too many? I have pushed that line a lot of times, and I'm trying to pull back from it a little bit. So we're going to go right there. That is our overhang on that lower roof. This project, it's some of it's going to be, some of it will be live streamed. Obviously, I'm going to probably work on it when I'm not streaming as well. So if I could come back to this, don't be surprised if I've moved on from this area once I stop this stream. I think I'm going to head in on these windows right here. We'll do, let's see how many we have on the screen here. I think we'll do the first 3. Get those values in. That's about as far as I'm going to go with that. But I do want to darken up the roof a little bit here. As I do that, you can see how the contrast plays, because even just watching this, as I'm doing it, I can see the way the contrast plays between these two. It lightened this section up as this got darker. As I was learning to do this, I didn't quite understand the value of darks against lights and how it can really make a difference in how your overall picture ends up looking. I think I'm just going to come down and I'm going to bring it over to about here. And we'll finish this section off. And I think that's where we'll end up calling it for tonight. So this should be very quick. Just adding a little bit. Yep, right up to about here. I do think I'm going to have to redefine those windows. Darken this area up also. Now it looks like it appears that there's a railing right here, so I'm just going to give the indication of some bars. And then bring that, what I believe is a door, down. Kind of like that. And then there's one post back here against this wall, and we'll get that put in. And another run there. Fingers crossed I don't go too dark on these windows. Yeah, redefine the edges. How's the shading around them? Virtually non-existent, so I went a little bit dark on these. We'll see if we can't fix this. We'll put a little bit of extra shading on the underside and the right side of each one of these. Now, I don't always work like this. I decided to do it this way just for the stream. Find one small section to work on. Generally, I would go through and I would block in darker areas, lighter areas, and then come back and work on it some more and come back and go over it again. And I might do that 4 or 5 times until finally I get to the values that I'm looking for, and everything just kind of falls into place. And, you know, when you're sneaking up on it, a lot of times you think you have a lot of time or a long time. Back up, reverse that. Next. A lot of times when you're sneaking up on these things, you think you have a long process ahead of you yet, but then all of a sudden it's bam. Oh, guess what? I'm done. It's just it'll get to a certain point when, oh, I guess I'm done now. I sign it and move on to the next one. Kind of surprising sometimes how quick the end comes up when you think you have a lot left to do. There's one little spot here. Looks like there's a drain spout. So I'm going to get that put in, and I think we might call this one for tonight. Right there is the drain spout. I'm going to brighten that up just a little bit on this edge. Something like that. And there is quite a good shadow coming off of that, so we'll put a little bit more shade in that. It might be a little bit much, but actually it's not. All right, just like that. All right. Definitely have more to do on the windows. Especially these lower sections are a lot darker than what the upper section is. So let's hit those real quick. And they actually come all the way down because of the angle. So we'll bring those down. Yeah, I don't know about everybody else, but to me on weekends, YouTube is boring. I watch a lot of things during the week. I watch a lot of YouTube in general. Uh, my wife can attest to that. But anyway, yeah, but on weekends, things I watch during the week, there's nobody on. So I thought, you know what? Instead of throwing a movie or something on while I'm doing this, which is what I normally do, I thought, you know what? Why don't I just live stream it? So here I am. And with that, I think we're going to call this one right where it's at right now. I'm going to back out of here, and everybody that showed up, I appreciate it. Thanks for the comments. I'm kind of thinking about doing this again tomorrow. If you're subscribed, I think you'll get the notification if you hit that little bell thing. I think it does something. Hit it and see. But anyway, thanks everybody for showing up, and I'll catch y'all later.